Foundation fam, big news right now here, wherever in your phone, you're living, wherever you're watching this, here comes breaking news. You feel me? Over the last 3 years, we have more than doubled as a church. And that's great. Confetti poppers, all the things, woohoo! However, with that comes an enormous set of challenges. Right, we're a small, historic, downtown little church. We're 7 years old, right? How do we continue to keep that feel and that significance that comes with that type of church as we grow? And you got to do both, right? You got to be able to do both, because we will grow as a church because Jesus is good, and we are simply putting on display Jesus as very best we can. And when that happens, that is good news. It brings great joy to all people, right? And so our church continues to grow because of Jesus. With that, though, we've got to make sure that we're continuing to offer significant opportunities for people to grow, both in their faith and relationally. And so a couple of years ago, we started brainstorming, hey, how are we going to take on this challenge? And it didn't take long for us to realize we would at some point be having to add a new full-time staff position. This new full-time staff position we refer to as a formations pastor, someone who's in charge of the systematic and spiritual growth or formation of our entire church body as a whole as we move forward. Now, with that, we've actually known for quite a while that this wouldn't be a hire we made from the outside, but it would be a hire we make from the inside. It would be an internal move. But we needed a couple of other things to fall in place to make that happen, and those things have happened. We'll get to that in a second. Let me first start with introducing you to, well, a very familiar face, but also known as our brand new formations pastor. I'm going to snap my fingers, and the power of cinema is going to put him magically in this chair, the formations pastor chair, right beside me. You ready? Here we go. Adam Pollard.
Hey, Clint.
Welcome to the formations pastor
Thanks.
chair.
You like the little magic trick I just did?
Hey, magic. That's right, magic.
Yeah.
Now, you have been our student pastor for the last 6 years. And when I say the last 6 years, I mean since the beginning, right? We didn't have a student ministry. Called and texted with Adam, Shelley. They were in Kentucky. They decided to move their family down here, them and the girls, and start a student ministry from nothing. What was that like, starting it from just, I mean, you didn't even have a place to meet. We had nothing.
Yeah. I would say it was exciting because just like everything at Foundation at that time, it was, hey, how do we create a ministry that just does what we feel like the Bible says? And so it was great to just say, hey, relationships are important for students. What does it look like to take a student from 6th grade to 12th grade where they own their faith by the time they graduate? And so the move was kind of scary. It was a big leap of faith on the family side, but I've loved every second of it. It's been a ton of fun. It's been an honor. I've loved it.
That's cool. Now, obviously, when you think through moving out of a position that you've been in, I mean, you've been doing student ministry. I mean, even before you were here, your entire ministry career has been student ministry, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been in student ministry?
Right about 11 years.
11 years. So that's been your entire known ministry world. When we started having this conversation more than a year and a half ago about moving into this new role of formations pastor, and we talk about someone that leads and oversees that systems and spiritual formation side of things for our church that gives full-time attention to it. Why do you feel like God has equipped you or built you, prepared you for this particular role?
Yeah, I would say two things. The first thing is if we've only met on Sunday morning or if we're just acquaintances, and you might not know this, but I am a giant introvert.
Yes.
Clint does. I really am. Like if you've ever done any like personality profiles or like any test, try to figure out how your brain works, all those things, every single one of mine are like design and details. And basically it says, hey, don't put this guy around people is what my profile says, right?
Which everyone who's watching at home that only knows you when you teach on stage.
Yeah.
Is writing their draws on the floor. Now, people that have gotten to know you a little bit, like, okay, I can see that.
And even now, like this is Adam on camera, like
right.
You know. And so, I think like naturally that's how I think, right? I'm more comfortable in that setting. But I think the thing that those tests don't show with anybody is the Holy Spirit's movement in their life. I mean, honestly, forever God has continued to teach me how to love people the way He does and see people the way that He does. And so when I think through like spiritual growth in people and some of the stuff I've done in student ministry, but my heart's just continued to grow for the church as a whole, and everybody discovering who Jesus is and owning their faith. And when we read the New Testament and we see the relationships, how they cared for one another, how they loved one another, how they provided for one another, there was fellowship, like all those things, my heart just grows for that. And so while I might be systems minded, I just desire that for our church. I desire that to look in the New Testament and say, like, why not us? Like, why can't we just be the best church, as biblically accurate as we can? Not that we're not trying, but like you said, as we've grown, there's just things that we need to focus on a little more that we've missed. And so I think it's where, for me, it's kind of where those worlds collide, right?
Yeah.
The systems and the spiritual formation. And so I'm just excited to jump into it. And it wasn't even a role that like we thought was going to be here, right? Like, I mean, if we would have had this conversation, 5 years ago, it's not like there was like, hey, we have this formations pastor and maybe you'll be it one day. I think God has continued to grow foundation, and then, a way grow me into what he knew was coming.
For sure.
And so, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I think, we see foundation and the heartbeat and the life, week in and week out. And so we're very aware of its, incredible pieces, but we're also very aware of where we as a church can do better, and can strengthen areas of weakness. And our exponential growth, it's created some missed opportunities just because we weren't able to provide enough opportunities for people to get involved. And we can't match make or force people into spiritual development. However, as a church, we should provide opportunities for people to take steps. And I do think that over the last at least 12 to 18 months, there's been opportunities that we've missed. And it's because there's just so many pieces that are moving at Foundation. And for us to be such a young church at 7 years old, this was a position that as we started to look at, it's like, man, we need someone that nonstop is looking at individual opportunities for people to move in both, as groups. And when I say groups, I don't mean just small groups, but as groups of people, but also as individuals of individual approaches to their spiritual growth. And I'm excited. I think you're going to do an incredible job with it, because we already use Adam in this way. Anytime we have a systems conversation in our staff, we bring Adam into the conversation. We want to make sure that his systems brain is thinking through it. He's been an incredible asset, not just to student ministry, but all of our ministries as a whole. So I think it's going to be a really great piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, now that chair's empty.
Yes, it is empty. That's our student pastor chair. And on this video, at least at this moment, it's empty. The truth is, in reality, it's not empty. We have filled this student ministry chair position, and we get a chance to introduce you to him in this very moment. And so just like with Adam, we'll snap our fingers and the power of cinema is going to take over. And, this guy's going to be teleported right here to my left. You ready to do it?
I'm ready.
Let's introduce you to our new student pastor, Rich DeWeese.
There he is.
How about that? You didn't see that one coming, did you? You didn't see that coming. When I had this conversation with Rich a year ago, he didn't see it coming either. He didn't see it coming either. We have been kind of working on this process of moving Adam into this position, looking for a new student pastor for at least come June. It'll be two full years. And we've gone through dozens and dozens of applicants. And about a year ago, I got to the place where I'd interviewed and had lunch with and talked over the phone and Zoom called with so many people. And none of them they just weren't fits for what we attempt to do here at Foundation with our staff. And all of them on a resume looked fine, but it just didn't work. And I'm sure they're great people. If any of you are watching this, it just is what it is, right? We had a conversation. You're fine. However, as we got into it, it was like, man, and I started just praying, like, God, what am I missing? Am I being too critical? Are my expectations too high? Like, what is it? And so we just started praying and thinking through it, and then all of a sudden one day, like, this moment happened where it was like, maybe I'm looking for the wrong thing altogether. and Rich's name popped into my head. And at first, I was like, I mean, he's been in ministry for over decades, but he's been out of church work at the time for 6.5, 7 years. But the more I started thinking about it, I was like, let me float this to Adam. Let me float this to Jason, our community outreach pastor. I brought it to them. I was like, hey, I got this crazy idea. I know there's this prototypical or maybe stereotypical vision of what a student pastor is. Rich doesn't. You don't meet that, right? You don't have dreads. There's no any tattoos?
No, sir.
No tattoos, right? Like all those things. Adam had dreads. You know what I'm saying?
I don't. It's not like every student pastor has dreads.
I
though.
know, but he
Yo.
just, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm
And
saying?
you wore them well.
Hey.
Oh, wait, I tried. I tried.
For those of you who didn't know Adam had dreads, just maybe we have a picture and we'll put it right here. There you go. See, told you. I just added more editing to the video. Sorry. No, we're digressing. We're digressing. So obviously it was like, man, that is wild. So we went and talked to you about a year ago, and it was like maybe a deer in headlights, tractor Mack truck was heading down. Like it seemed positive, but then the reality was just like, hey, I don't know. Maybe explain it to us. How did you feel when I brought it to you over a year ago?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. On the outside, I don't look like a student pastor. But I'm telling you, on the inside, I think I'm the ideal student pastor. The thing was that you brought this idea, and my heart just kind of leaped because I thought, that's exciting. But then all of the doubts and all of the questions and all the things that you guys are thinking about why I don't look like a student pastor. And it took me a while to kind of work through that and allow the Holy Spirit to say, hey, it's time to step back. It's time to do what I made you to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your ministry experience. I know I mentioned before that you had a lot. So in total, how many years of full-time ministry experience you got?
So I spent 34 years in full-time ministry, a lot of different positions, but 20 of that roughly is student ministry.
Hold on, let me pause you there. 20 years in student ministry. You have
11.
11. I've been in full-time ministry now just past 20 years. So you've done student. That's a lot. That's a lot of experience, Rich.
Which the bigger number to me is 34 years of ministry total. I'm 34 year old.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah.
You have a whole Adam lifetime of full-time ministry experience. That's something else. So that much student ministry experience. And then you also sat in a lead pastor role for about how long?
Yeah, 15, 17 years.
Yeah.
Something in there. And that's great. But I stepped into the lead pastor role with a misconception. I thought that I could just take what I was doing in student ministry and do it with the adults, and it would be the same. And it never was. I believe that God has used me in that role, right? I think I had impact.
Yeah.
But my heart never got over student ministry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think over the last 2 years, you've actually been volunteering with the middle school, high school students. You did a year with high school students as one of the mentors. You're currently about to come to a close with your second year doing middle school students. Talk a little bit about these last 2 years and just volunteering with students, because you had no idea any of this was a part of the conversation when you started to volunteer and do those things. So just that personal experience. Why did you decide, of all the areas of foundation you could volunteer at 2 years ago, why did you choose students, and what have you learned, or maybe what's excited you about them?
Yeah, it became very obvious to me that God was saying, hey, I've put too much into you for you to not have more influence in the church than you're having. And, I've got a lot of relationships, I've done a lot of different things, but there was no place that I felt like the influence that I could bring was more needed than in the life of teenagers. Working with the high schoolers is always exciting, and it's fun because they're so close to being adults, right? Working with the middle schoolers is always exciting because you never know what you're getting.
That's right.
And it's been a joy for me to step back into that. I can tell you that if I hadn't spent the last 2 years with students, when you brought up the idea, I would have had a different reaction.
Yeah. I can see that. I can definitely see how that would have taken place. It's wild how God sometimes works upstream in advance in our lives, and we have no idea what He's putting together as He's putting pieces in place that we just didn't see coming. You know, I know there's, as we kind of mentioned, that you currently just don't fit the typical student ministry hire. That guy's typically someone who's 3 or 4 years right out of college, looking to jump into ministry and knows every single word that every middle school or high school would say, and knows how to play every video game and those kind of things. And that's not necessarily your world. But as just to speak, let me just take my lead pastor hat off and just put my dad hat on. When I think through this next season of who we want to lead student ministry and what are the attributes and the things that are, and about who that leader is that's going to make them stand out or make them significant in the role in our church. When I think through my own 2 middle schoolers and my son's about to be in high school, I think about the character traits and the consistency and the devotion to what the Bible says and learning it. Those things are all enormously strong with you. And I know as a dad, I feel great about the leadership for a couple of reasons. Number one, character, passion for Jesus. But on the other side is you've got more energy than I think if you were to take our entire staff and melt our energy into one pot, and you were to melt Rich's energy, his pot's still full, more full than ours. He's got an enormous amount of energy. Are you still running in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Are you 3 miles?
3 miles a day.
3 miles. So this morning, I mean, there's still snow on the ground when we're filming this.
Yeah, well, so I was inside today.
Ran inside today.
Yeah, sorry.
You're getting soft.
Getting soft. 100%. Thanks for calling me out on that.
Yeah, how about that? But still 3 miles.
Yes, sir.
Adam, how far did you run this morning?
I walked from my bedroom to my kitchen and back a couple times. That's it.
Yeah, same. I mean, yeah, I didn't run either, obviously. So I think it's good. I think it's good. I'm as a dad, I think it's an incredible spot. I think you're an incredible fit for what we want to do. That's one side of it. The other side of it, from a lead pastor side of things, put that hat back on. There's no doubt that you and your wife, Lisa, love Foundation. Y'all have been a part of Foundation since the very beginning. Walk us through was it a pre-launch Sunday, or I'm pretty sure it was pre-launch, right? Y'all were going to visit churches. Just walk us through that first time at Foundation.
So we had just stepped out of full-time ministry.
As a lead pastor.
As
right?
a lead pastor. Mm-hmm. And your first preview gathering was the first Sunday that we got to choose where we went to church.
How about that?
So we showed up.
That was October 2017.
Yes, sir. So we showed up at Newnan High School, excited. Everything about that experience was so positive. I was so pumped for you because I could just see what God was going to do. That's
cool. And y'all been here ever since?
Yes, sir.
That's it. That's cool. Look, I know y'all got a ton of questions. That's natural when big changes like this take place in a church that's as close as we are. And so we want to make sure that we do a really good job as a staff at answering those questions. So we're going to do a couple of things. First, on your Church Center app right now, if you open it and go to the homepage, there's a link that says FAQs on it. If you click that, we've prepared a number of different questions that we think would be important to you. And so you can go and read through those. However, if that doesn't answer your question, there's a couple of ways that you can kind of get that question answered. The first is we have a Google number, 678-661-6330. It's on our profile. If you forget it after this video, you can just search us on Google and you can text that number and say, I've got a question. And our staff will get back to you as soon as we can. Another way that you can do that is this coming Sunday, after each gathering, all 3 of us will be outside under the awning, and you can come and approach us and ask any question that you've got. And then specifically for students and parents of students, this coming Sunday night, there's a special student gathering from 6 to 8 that's completely focused to all things that are happening to my left and to my right. specifically through the lens of students and parents. And so we want to make sure that you're aware of that and that you can come and take part of it. So if you've always wondered, hey, what does a student gathering look like? There will still be some elements of the student gathering, but a significant portion of that will be geared towards this type of question and answer and kind of an information gathering. And so if you've always wanted to see what students kind of looks like, instead of just dropping your kid off at the curb, you get a chance to come on in and just kind of see the madness that is student ministry and how it has evolved and continues to grow and challenge kids to own their faith. As always, we want to communicate in a very transparent way, and so use any of those avenues to reach out, and we would love to put some work into answering your questions. I think we've got an incredible vision to move forward, both with our student ministry, with middle school and high school students, both with the added time and attention of the systems and the spiritual formation side of what our church ought to be doing week in and week out to make sure that every single person that comes to know Jesus and joins the movement of creating a You Belong Here movement where people are the destination and Jesus is the lead, that full-time attention by a staff member is going to pay enormous dividends. And so we're excited about the future. We're excited to bring this long-form interview to you here on social media. And as always, we are here to serve, not just you, but our entire community. And so let's do that together. Church, I love you. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for what God is doing through all of us. We will be ready to answer your questions and can't wait to see you this Sunday.